So why do you oppose the bailout?
Well, first of all, it's not going to work because in order for it to work, it has to fill in a huge hole in the financial system. So it's estimated by the Bank of International Settlements that the over-the-counter derivative market is $1,300 trillion. I don't even know what the word is for that. Gazillion or something, as Scrooge McDuck might say. But it's a huge number, and 750 billion is only a tiny, tiny piece of that. Just one piece of the total derivative market, the CDOs, the credit derivative swaps, which are insurance, is $60 trillion. So the bailout is only 1/60th of that one little piece of the derivative pie. And if all these things go down, they'd have to print an almost infinite amount of money. Now the problem with printing all this money is that it diverts resources to the old malinvestments. So what's a malinvestment? Well, the classic example of malinvestment is tulips. The Dutch in the late 1600s had a big credit expansion like we did, and the object of their speculation with their credit was tulips. And the tulips ended up being very, very expensive. Like some tulips even went for more than a house would go for today. So with the tulip mania, eventually it crashed because there got to be people just kept buying tulips because they were speculating on it, and eventually after all the speculators were in, and then the whole thing crashed. Well, we also have speculators in all areas of our economy. First it was internet stocks, now it's condos and houses all over the country, and there are all kinds of other speculations, and a lot of those are as worthless as tulips were after the tulip bubble burst. But imagine if the government of Holland had stepped in way back then and said, well, we can't allow this tulip bubble to burst. We're going to end up with too many unemployed tulip farmers. And and General Tulips is going to go under with thousands of employees. And all the bank loans to General Tulips are going to go under. And we're going to end up, and then the banks that have derivatives on the tulips are going to go under. And so we can't allow this to happen because it will destroy our banking system and our financial system, and millions of Dutch tulip people involved in the Dutch tulip industry will go broke and hungry, and we'll end up with bread lines. So what we have to do is we have to keep buying up the tulips. So the government might have a big program to buy up the tulips, to buy up General Tulips, to buy up all the banks that loan to the tulips, and they'd end up with warehouses and warehouses full of tulips. But it would continue to be very profitable to sell tulips to the government. So they would probably start shipping all the cows and all the cheese factories out to Germany and stuff, because they could use all that land to grow even more tulips. And eventually the poor Dutch people would wake up one day and have no farms left, and no cows left, and no cheese left, because all that was left was tulips, and they couldn't eat the tulips. So that in a nutshell is what's going to happen to us if the government keeps printing money and putting it into all these tulip malinvestments. Now we've already seen a similar fate happen in the last few weeks to Iceland. Its banks needed 6 times its GDP, its gross domestic product, from the government of Iceland in order to keep from going bust. Well, the government of Iceland wasn't big enough to rescue the banks, and the world market realized that almost immediately, and the Icelandic dollar, or whatever it's called, went to no bid. No bid means nobody wanted it. And so that means, at least for a little while there, the currency of Iceland was close to worthless. Now the people in the people who were watching the news in Iceland figured this out pretty fast. They ran to the stores, and all the major stores in Reykjavik were emptied that night, and the gas stations were emptied first thing in the morning. And this is the kind of panic that can happen when the currency rapidly depreciates. In other words, when inflation runs away with you. So now, this weekend, there was a run on the banks in Australia, and a second very, very large island is now threatened with a worthless currency because its banks also are too big to save. And if you look at the United States, everybody says, well, the United States is not an island, it's the biggest economy in the world. Well, if you compare our gross domestic product to the total derivative market, it's worse than Iceland's ratio. Our total gross domestic product is about $15 billion, no, trillion dollars a year. That's right. And the derivatives the total derivatives is 1,300 trillion. So you're talking about 100 to 1 ratio, which is really worse than Iceland's ratio was if all those derivatives go bad, which of course is unlikely. But it could easily be 10 to 1. And while we're not an island, we certainly are, if you look far enough, an island in space. So we need to be very serious about the consequences of continuing to try to bail out our economy. So that's all for that tulip issue.